And now from the Bedroomer Studios, a special presentation for Grandma Dier. Tales of the Captain Duke, the Stowaway Debutante.
Chapter 8, in which our hero learns to expect the unexpected. It was the day of the raid. The Captain Duke was making his rounds to ensure that the final preparations were underway. There was a sense of electricity in the air as the crew set themselves to their tasks with greater determination. Some had talismans hanging from their belts to bring good fortune. Others kept a lucky knot around the wrist of their shooting arm. Nessa had added small braids to the side of her usual plate, a nod to the traditions of her ancestors. They had disguised the airship with new scrollwork and canvas to avoid detection. Today they were the Queen Sparrow. It was one of Cat and Mouse's favorite games, thinking of new names for the airship. The hull had seen many monikers in its time, and worn several guises in its travels. The Captain Duke had his own secret name for his airship, a name only he and Trick knew from the midnight christening after her liberation from Atreides dock. Names had power, and he was more aware of their potency than most. She was a beautiful ship, with solid lightweight decks and sturdy lines. Her balloons were replaced each season, and the double lining held multiple individual chambers to decrease the risk of an explosion. The captain had studied the dynamics of different airships for years before choosing his, and he made sure to look into every innovation. An explosion almost a decade ago on a passenger ship had inspired a great deal of technological advances and improvements to the safety of modern airships. It was a different story, however, when you meant to stay in the air regardless of who was trying to shoot you down. They were drifting over the forested countryside, waiting for the other ship to come into sight. He heard Cat shout down to her brother. Mouse conveyed the message from his position halfway down the ropes. "Airship sighted off the starboard bow. It's coming in from the west." The two youths scrambled to descend the ladders. Cat gave the precise location of the other ship, and he sent a message to the navigator to adjust their position accordingly. The gliders were on standby, and the rudder was partially disabled. They were able to maneuver by adjusting the angle of the propellers, but for the plan to work they needed to seem stuck. "Cat, take Mouse and Clara and stay down in the cabins. You know the routine." "Yes, Captain," she said. He exchanged a look with Clara as she came to join them. The captain's resolve wavered, but it was too late to turn course with the other ship so near. Cat and Mouse were born to this life, but stowaway or no, he had his doubts about Clara. If all was above board, there would be little trouble today. Still, the risk to her safety would have to be endured. "Stay below, and keep out of trouble," he said. Her sigh was echoed with identical eye-rolls from Cat and Mouse. "Come now, Clara, the dear Captain Duke has entrusted me with your well-being. You must teach us this embroidery you speak of," Cat sang as she ushered her little brother to the stairs, linking arms with Clara as she went. The captain watched until they were safely below, and returned to the preparations. The other airship, once it was in sight, was a heavier model with 3 huge balloons taking on its weight. Its cargo was concealed in a large hold. The captain smiled at the size of it. There must be a great deal on board to merit the lift required to carry it. He stood and watched it grow as it neared until he could read the writing on the side, "The High Flyer." Its midship deck bustled with activity as the crew gathered to get a look at him. He had only a few of his pilots with him, the cooks, a few medics, and Trick. When they were close enough, he raised his hand to hail the other captain. "In the name of your queen, your assistance, please." "What is the nature of your inquiry?" the other captain called back. The Queen Sparrow had raised its flag indicating distress. "Our rudder has unfortunately fallen into disrepair. Would you have any spare parts to assist us?" The other captain turned to confer with his lieutenants. From the corner of his eye, the Captain Duke caught sight of a shadow passing over the other ship's balloons. He smiled to himself. The gliders were in place. It was all according to plan. He kept his sight on his counterpart, who had finished discussing the matter with the crew, and turned back with his reply. "Our apologies, but we are unable to be of assistance at this time. We have an urgent delivery that is expected on the coast. We will send word by telegraph to the nearest port to assist you as soon as they are able." "I'm afraid that is unacceptable," the Captain Duke replied. He savored the look of confusion that crossed their faces as he signaled to his crew. Chaos reigned as 12 gliders landed smoothly on the opposite side of the High Flyer's decks, each with an extra pilot strapped in front who quickly released themselves, ready for battle. They protected their partner as the glider's wings were drawn in, providing the perfect distraction as the Captain Duke and his crew took up an offensive position within seconds. Nessa was an intimidating figure at the center of the glider crew, both pistols raised and ready. The others had short swords held before them, better for close fighting. The High Flyer was immediately compromised. The other captain turned back angrily. "You will regret this, pirate!" "We can do this the easy way or the hard. It is your choice. Surrender your ship, and we will only take what we need." "No harm will come to you or your crew. You have my word," said the Captain Duke. "Oh, you can be certain there will be harm today," the other man shouted as his face turned a disturbing shade of red. The Captain Duke smiled with the dare in his eyes as the adrenaline flooded his veins in preparation for a fight. A witty retort was on his lips when he saw the door of the other ship's hold open with a glint of steel. Dozens of soldiers streamed out onto the decks, taking a defensive position quickly and turning on his crew members. 7 gliders were able to get off amid the chaos, some grabbing their partners by the harness with no time to strap them in properly. Nessa sent her own glider off without her as she fought to give the others time to escape. The captain watched in horror, jumping onto the rail and holding the lines for balance as he raised his gun. "No!" he thundered. "Stop this at once!" He saw at least 3 soldiers nursing bullet wounds from Nessa's pistols, but there was no way to get to his crew members with the odds against them. He felt helpless as he caught her eye and saw her look of surrender. Nessa aimed upwards at one of the High Flyer's balloons to fire, but was tackled by 4 soldiers before she could make the shot. The rest of the glider crew was subdued, while Nessa was dragged across the deck, fighting her captors all the way. She got in a few good kicks before they made it to the other captain. He aimed a pistol at her temple as they forced her head to look up at him. "Stop!" yelled the Captain Duke. "Let us parley." The other man grinned evilly. He pulled his arm back and struck Nessa across her skull. The Captain Duke reeled at the sight of his brave second mate crumpling to the floor. A hand grasped his coat, and he glanced down to see Trick restraining him with a look of warning. The soldiers were lined along the High Flyer's deck, some aiming at himself, others for their balloon. His own crew was lined up with guns at the ready, waiting on his word. They had little hope of escaping the situation. Retaliation was out of the question with Nessa incapacitated on board, not unless he was willing to sacrifice his own pilots. "Well, pirate?" the other captain called over. "Are you prepared to surrender?" The Captain Duke was running out of options. Perhaps he could still save his crew if he went along with them, but more than likely they'd be jailed under the worst conditions with no reputation to warrant better treatment. The Captain Duke was ready to take drastic measures when he caught movement from the corner of his eye. The door to his own crew's quarters opened. The Captain Duke yelled a warning to take cover, but choked on his words as he'd struggled to conceal his shock. Clara the pilot was gone. Before him, Clara the debutante stepped into the sun, dressed in an afternoon gown, shading her eyes with a parasol as Kat followed behind. She smiled demurely at him, then turned, as though noticing the other airship for the first time, and screamed.